Luke Skywalker redeeming Darth Vader is the most defining moment of his character, as well as for the character of Anakin Skywalker and his return to the light. That is why, in the Fate of the Jedi series and beyond, when Luke Skywalker is Grand Master, his decision not to redeem another Sith is what defined him during this era. It's an interesting question. Why would Luke Skywalker see such light in Vader, a being seemingly completely consumed by their own darkness and failure? And how did another Sith Lord in his family, Jacen Solo Darth Kaidus, push Luke too far? The Sith Lord that Luke believed was now beyond redemption. Redemption is a concept deeply intertwined with the legacy of Luke. Luke's journey has been defined by hope, even in the darkest of places and the darkest of people. He demonstrates this belief when he faced Darth Vader, his father, Anakin, and chose to redeem him rather than destroy him, despite the protests of his Jedi masters. But decades later, when his nephew Jacen Solo fell to the dark side and became Darth Kaidus, Luke Skywalker made a very different choice. He said that Jacen was beyond redemption. It was not because Luke lacked the strength to confront his nephew or overpower him. He didn't believe the dark side was more powerful. Instead, Luke believed that Jacen was fundamentally different from Anakin. When Luke had seen a victim of manipulation in his father, he saw a willing architect of tyranny in his nephew. Where he had once believed in a spark of Anakin Skywalker's light, he sensed only darkness within Jacen. And when Anakin had fallen into the dark side as a trap, Luke saw Jacen's turn as a deliberate, philosophical choice. This is the story of why Luke Skywalker chose not to redeem Kaidus, how his journey shaped this decision, and why in the end, Luke passed the burden of stopping Jacen to someone who understood him best, his twin sister, Jaina Solo. Chapter 1: The Shadow of Darth Vader. Luke's belief in redemption began with the darkest chapter in his own life, the revelation that his father Anakin had become Darth Vader. When Luke faced Vader on the Death Star, he saw the man behind the mask, a man consumed by fear, anger, and regret. He felt the faint glimmer of something more, a conflict. He believed that despite the atrocities that Vader had committed, the man who had once been a Jedi, a hero, and a father still existed deep within him. This belief was validated when Anakin sacrificed himself to save Luke and to destroy the Emperor. Anakin's final act not only redeemed himself, but reaffirmed Luke's faith in the power of the light side, and able to overcome the deepest of darknesses in the future. But Luke's faith in redemption came with a caveat. He saw Vader's fall to the dark side as a mistake. Anakin had been manipulated by Palpatine, who preyed on his fear of losing Padme and his frustration with the Jedi Order. To Luke, Vader had been a victim, a tragic figure who had been ensnared by the dark side, but ultimately freed himself through the love of his son, the vision that George Lucas shared for the character. Chapter 2: The Philosophy of Kaidus. Jacen Solo's fall to the dark side was fundamentally and drastically different from Anakin's. Unlike Anakin, Jacen's turn was not driven by fear or manipulation. His turn was driven purely by philosophy. Jacen's descent began during the Yuzhong Vong War, where he endured unimaginable suffering and trauma. In the war, he was captured, tortured, and stripped of his connection to the Force. And during his imprisonment, he encountered a Force sensitive who had been a Jedi, and who extensively studied the Sith. They were named Vergir. She was a mysterious figure who introduced Jacen in his lowest moment to an unorthodox, different view of the Force. Vergir taught Jacen that the Force was neither inherently good nor evil, that the morality of the Force was determined by intent, not by the light or the dark side. Jacen embraced this idea wholeheartedly, and he began to see the Force as a tool to achieve balance and peace, whatever side he needed to use. Years after the war, when visions of galactic chaos plagued Jacen's mind and visions, he concluded that the only way to prevent this future was to unify the galaxy. Jacen believed that it was the Sith that offered discipline and power that was needed to impose order and to bring peace to stop this chaos and destruction. Jacen's turn to the dark side wasn't an act of desperation. It was a calculated, methodical choice. It was grounded in the belief that his actions were for a greater good. To Jacen, he was a sacrificial figure, a tragic one. To Luke, this made Jacen more dangerous than Vader had ever been. Jacen was not manipulated into becoming Kaidus in Luke's mind. He had chose it full-heartedly. He had studied the Sith deliberately, immersed himself in their teachings, and wielded the power of the dark side with conviction. Luke saw this as a darkness born of Jacen's own will and desire, not the result of an external force like Palpatine. And now we get to Chapter 3. The death of Mara Jade. For Luke, the moment that solidified Jacen's place beyond redemption was the murder of his wife, Mara Jade Skywalker. Jacen murdered Mara as a part of his rise to power, seeing her as a threat to his vision of galactic peace. Her death was not a crime of passion or necessity, it was a calculated act, one that Jacen justified as being for the greater good. When Luke discovered the death of his wife Mara, his grief was compounded by rage. For a moment, even the Jedi Grand Master faltered. He sought out Lumaya, the Sith who had influenced Jacen, and killed her in a fit of righteous fury, at the time believing that Lumaya had been the one to do the deed. She was a Sith, a threat to the galaxy in Luke's mind. But although Luke may have been right, he was deeply scared now. A part of his actions had been driven by vengeance, and he could not deny it. This moment forced Luke to confront the truth about himself. Even as the Jedi Grand Master, he was not immune to the pull of the dark side. He realized that if he pursued Jacen personally, his anger and grief could consume him. This would mean the cost of his soul and the Jedi Order. This was too great of a sacrifice. By the way, Disney, that's how you write a Jedi Grand Master Luke story. Chapter 4, The Sword of the Jedi. Instead of confronting Kaidus personally, Luke turned to someone else, Jacen's twin sister, Jaina Solo. Jaina was the prophesied sword of the Jedi, a warrior destined to defend the galaxy from a greater darkness. She understood Jacen better than anyone living, having shared a deep bond with him since birth. But more importantly, Jaina was unburdened by the grief and anger that now weighed on Luke. Luke believed that Jaina was the only one who could defeat Jacen without succumbing to the dark side. He saw her as the galaxy's greatest hope, not only to stop Kaidus, but also to emerge from the battle with her soul intact. Sending Jaina to face her brother was not an act of cowardice on Luke's part. It was a choice born of wisdom and humility. Luke knew based on sheer power that he could defeat Jacen, but the cost to himself and the Jedi would be too high. If he killed Jacen, he would also kill the Jedi Grand Master title and kill his soul. By entrusting this task to Jaina instead, Luke ensured that Jacen's fall would be met with justice, not vengeance. Chapter 5, The Irredeemable Nature of Kaidus. Ultimately, Luke's decision not to redeem Jacen came down to two key differences between Jacen and Anakin: the nature of their fall to the dark side, and the possibility of their redemption. Anakin's fall was a mistake, one that could be corrected through love and through sacrifice. Jacen's fall was a choice, rooted in a philosophy that rejected Jedi teachings and embraced the Sith as a means to an end. Luke believed that while Anakin had been a victim of manipulation and a greater evil in Palpatine, Jacen was the architect of his own fall to the dark side. Even if Jacen's intentions were pure and noble, to bring peace to the galaxy, his methods and choices were irredeemable. For Luke, redemption requires a spark of light, a willingness to turn away from the dark side. In Anakin, Luke saw that spark. In Jacen, he saw only a man who embraced the dark side with conviction and would never willingly return to the light. And Luke was right. Jacen Solo was never redeemed. He never turned away from the path of the dark side. He's a tragic figure. He turned to the dark side out of purely fear, and also a philosophical ideal that he was the only one that could prevent his fear from occurring. The only one with the full view of the Force that could unite the galaxy. Tragically though, he weakened the galaxy tremendously, leading to the eventual rise of the Sith and Darth Krayt and the powers of Abeloth. Luke Skywalker's choice to confront Vader with love and Kaidus with justice reflects the evolution and understanding of the Force of the Grand Master. The dark side and redemption, he believed in hope, but he also believed in deep wisdom. Luke's decision not to redeem Jacen Solo was not a failure of courage or of faith. It was an acknowledgement of the truth. Jacen's fall was not the same as Anakin's, and the galaxy's best chance at defeating him lay with the person who knew him best, Jaina. For Luke, his battle against the dark side was eternal, but the choices that he made in that battle, whether to redeem, to destroy, or to trust, defined the legacy of the Jedi Order. Kaidus was more dangerous than Vader to Luke because Jacen was truly lost. Vader's fall was because of emotional vulnerability. Jacen's fall was deliberate, philosophical. He believed the Sith were necessary. Unlike Vader, who rediscovered his humanity through love for his son, Jacen abandoned this entirely, making him the first and only member of the Skywalker bloodline to fall beyond redemption. Luke understood that redemption requires a light, a willingness to return. He saw that light in Vader, but in Jacen there was only conviction. Kaidus represented an ultimate threat, a Sith fully committed to control and tyranny without any internal conflict. This made him a danger not only to the galaxy, but to Luke as fighting Jacen risked his very soul. Knowing that the dark side needed to be destroyed, Luke entrusted Jacen's defeat to Jaina, the Sword of the Jedi. Luke recognized that some darkness cannot be redeemed, and Kaidus' fall would mark the true low point in Luke Skywalker's long life, at least as Jedi Grand Master. But what are your thoughts on this, my friends? What are your thoughts on why Luke Skywalker never attempted to redeem Jacen solo, and yet attempted to redeem his father and Vader? Do you think that Luke was right here, or should he have tried to save his nephew? Also, if you would like more videos about Darth Kaidus, it would help us out a great deal if you could leave a like and request more below. But as always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and thanks for watching.